Dear students, after studying this module, you shall be able to learn about the principle of gel electrophoresis, polyacrylamide and agarose gels, composition of gels, the difference between denaturing and native gels, and why do we need radioisotopes and what is their biological importance. You shall also learn about the applications of radioisotopes in medicine. Students, let us now begin with the introduction of this topic. Proteins, as you all know, are the most versatile macromolecules in the living system, and they serve crucial functions in essentially all biological processes. The synthesis of proteins is itself catalyzed by many proteins and enzymes too. However, this process is directed by the genetic material, which is deoxyribonucleic acid, which is also denoted as popularly DNA. The structure of DNA powerfully illustrates a basic principle which is common to all biological macromolecules: the intimate relation between the structure and the function. The molecular details of a biochemical process cannot be fully elucidated until the reacting molecules have been isolated and characterized fully. Therefore, students, it is necessary to know about the techniques, methods used for the separation and identification of biomolecules. This module basically covers the principle and applications of the biochemical techniques carried out for characterization of nucleic acids and proteins. Electrophoresis is an analytical tool used by biochemists for the separation and purification of biomolecules. Many important biological molecules such as amino acids, proteins, nucleic acids possess ionizable groups and therefore at any given pH exist in solution as electrically charged species, either as cations, that is positively charged, or as anions, negatively charged. These charged particles, depending on the nature of their net charge, will migrate under the influence of an electric field. Along with electrophoresis, we will also discuss in this module about the radioisotopes and their biological applications. Radioisotopes are used for tracing metabolic pathways. They are important because they are widely used in the diagnosis and treatment of various illnesses. The enzyme and ligand binding studies can be assayed using radiotracer methods, provided that a radioactive form of the substrate is available. The greatest practical disadvantage of using radioisotopes is their toxicity. The majority of isotopes which are used in the biological research emit beta radiations, that is beta rays, and are considered to have a biological effect that is very similar to the X-rays. So one has to be very careful while using the radioisotopes and the techniques which use the radioisotopes. So let us now move on to the first topic of discussion, which is electrophoresis. What is electrophoresis? Electrophoresis refers to the electromotive force, that is EMF, that describes the migration of charged particles under the influence of an electric field. Most of the biological polymers are electrically charged and will therefore move in an electric field. This technique was pioneered in the year 1937 by the Swedish chemist Arne Tiselius for the separation of various proteins. It has now been extended to the separation of many different classes of biomolecules, which include nucleic acids, carbohydrates, and amino acids too. Powerful electrophoretic techniques have been developed to separate the macromolecules on the basis of molecular weight, charge, shape, and size. Gel electrophoresis in particular refers to the technique which is used for the separation of macromolecules, especially nucleic acids and proteins. By placing the molecules in wells or in gel plates and applying electric current, the molecule will move through the gel matrix at different rates. The relative mobility of individual molecules depends on several factors, among which the most important is the net charge, charge to mass ratio, molecular shape, porosity and viscosity of the matrix through which the molecule basically migrates. Along with these, temperature is one of the main factors on which the mobility of a biomolecule depends upon. The net charge is determined by the number of positive and negative charges in the molecule. In contrast to proteins, which can have either a net positive or a net negative charge, nucleic acids have a consistent negative charge imparted by their phosphate backbone, and therefore they migrate towards the anode. The molecule will move towards the negative cathode if positively charged, or towards the positive anode if the negative charge, if it is having the negative charge. Therefore, the different physical and chemical properties of a molecule determine how rapidly an electric field can move the molecule through a gelatinous medium. Now here in this figure, students, you can clearly see how the migration of charged molecules in an electric field takes place on the basis of charge and size. Let us now discuss in detail about the principle of gel electrophoresis. When a potential difference, that is a voltage, is applied across the electrodes, it generates a potential gradient E, which is applied across voltage V divided by the distance d between the electrodes. The electric force EQ driving the charged molecule towards the oppositely charged electrode is opposed by the frictional resistance that retards the movement of this charged molecule. This frictional force is a measure of the hydrodynamic size of the migrating molecule, shape of the molecule, the pore size of the medium in which the electrophoresis takes place, and the viscosity eta of the buffer. When placed in an electric field, any charged ion or a molecule migrates, and the movement of the charged molecule with velocity v is therefore given by the equation v is equal to EQ divided by F, where v is equal to the velocity of migration of the molecule, E is the electric field in volts per centimeter, Q is the net electrical charge on the molecule, and F is the frictional coefficient. The mobility of a charged molecule in an electric field can also be expressed in terms of electrophoretic mobility, mu, which is defined as velocity per unit, that is the electric field, that is given by the formula mu is equal to V by E is equal to Q by F, since V is equal to EQ divided by F. All types of electrophoresis are based on the same principle. The major difference, however, between the methods is the type of support medium, which can be either cellulose or thin gels. Cellulose is used as a support medium for low molecular weight biomolecules such as amino acids. Carbohydrates and polyacrylamide and agarose gels are widely used as support media for larger molecules. However, denaturing gels are also used or also performed to check the purity of the biomolecules. What are therefore denaturing gels? Denaturing gels have been used for various applications of biology, such as the analysis of milk proteins, various recombinant proteins, and also been used for the separation and purification of a single-stranded fragment of DNA and RNA. Biopolymers such as nucleic acids and proteins are folded into secondary, tertiary and quaternary structures by ionic interactions, stacking interactions, hydrogen bonding and hydration too. Denaturation is the destruction of the molecular conformation of the native protein and nucleic acids and results in the loss of their biological activity. Denaturation can be carried by the application of denaturants, some external agents, or a compound such as a strong acid or base, a concentrated inorganic salt, an organic solvent, radiation or heat. Under denaturating conditions, such samples, that is nucleic acids or proteins, migrate in a manner determined largely by their intrinsic electrical charge. The electrophoretic mobility of denatured biomolecules will be changed due to the altered charge and shape, since it now migrates as an unstructured monomer through the gel matrix. Let us now discuss about the urea polyacrylamide gel electrophoresis, that is also short form as used as urea PAGE. Denaturing polyacrylamide gels are used to allow the separation of molecules by their relative size by keeping the molecules denatured. Formamide and urea are often used to denature the DNA and RNA, and they allow their separation on the basis of size by keeping the molecules single-stranded. Samples can also be heat treated for denaturation. The secondary structure of nucleic acid is stabilized by hydrogen bonding between the base pairs. Similar hydrogen bonds are involved in stabilization of secondary, tertiary and quaternary structures of proteins. High concentration of urea, that is 7 to 8 molar, interrupt the hydrogen bonding between two functional groups, leading to complete disruption of secondary, tertiary and quaternary structures. Denaturing gel can be performed by running the oligomers on 20% PAGE containing 7 molar urea. Oligonucleotide samples are prepared in formamide and 1x-TBE. The sample solutions are heat treated at 95 degrees Celsius for 5 minutes and then immediately transferred to the icebox. The gel is run at high voltage of 180 to 200 volt in the buffer containing 1x-TBE. After electrophoresis is carried out, the gels are stained with ethidium bromide or stains all, and bands can be visualized under UV visible light. Now here in this you can see in this figure, urea disrupts the hydrogen bonding between the functional groups and proteins, and we have shown this clearly in this figure. Let us now discuss about SDS PAGE or sodium dodecyl sulfate polyacrylamide gel electrophoresis. SDS PAGE is a technique used for the analysis of protein mixture qualitatively. It is mostly used for protein purification and their molecular mass determination. SDS is an anionic detergent which disrupts the secondary structure and the tertiary and the quaternary structure to produce linear polypeptide chains. Because SDS is negatively charged ionic detergent, it coats the proteins with negative charges, preventing the reformation of any higher order structure. SDS is added to the gel as well as to the sample. Sample to be run on the SDS PAGE is firstly boiled for 5 minutes in the buffer containing SDS and beta-mercaptoethanol. The mercaptoethanol reduces all the disulfide bonds which are present that are holding together the protein structure, and SDS denatures the protein too. Each protein in the mixture gets fully denatured by this technique. On an average, one SDS molecule binds to every 2 amino acid residues. Thus, the original native charge on the molecule is completely swamped by the negatively charged SDS molecules. Consequently, SDS polypeptide complexes will have net negative charge and migrate anode towards the anode at rate based solely on size and molecular weight of the polypeptides. After electrophoresis and dye staining, mobilities are measured and molecular weight can be determined graphically. Let us now discuss, students, about the non-denaturing or the native gels. When gel electrophoresis is carried out without the denaturants, that is urea or SDS as discussed right now, in gel solutions, it is said to be non-denaturing or the native gels. Here, the natural structures of the analytes, DNA or protein is maintained. Now students, we shall discuss about the apparatus which is used in the gel electrophoresis after having discussed various types of gels. The basic components required for the electrophoresis are a power pack and an electrophoresis unit. The power pack supplies a stabilized direct current at a required voltage. Electrophoresis units are available for running either vertical or horizontal gel systems and consist of electrodes and buffer reservoirs. The gel is formed between two gel plates that are clamped together but held apart by plastic spacers. A plastic comb is placed in the gel solution and is removed after polymerization. The wells are rinsed thoroughly with buffer to remove the salts and any unpolymerized material, also known as a pre-run. The gel plate is clamped into place in the electrophoresis unit. Samples are loaded into each well. Buffer is poured into it and voltage is applied henceforth. When the bands have moved to the opposite end, the voltage is turned off and the gel is removed from the electrophoresis unit. It is important to know when to stop applying voltage during the electrophoresis because if the process runs for too long, the molecules under study may pass entirely through the medium and into the buffer. If voltage applied is for a short period, the components may not be fully resolved. After electrophoresis, protein bands in gels can be visualized by staining with dyes such as amido black 10B, Comassi brilliant blue, R250 or silver staining. The most commonly used is the Comassi brilliant blue R250 and can be used as a 0.25% aqueous solution. It is followed by destaining, that is removal of the extra background dye by repeatedly washing it with the gel with 7% acetic acid. Nucleic acids are visualized in agarose and polyacrylamide gels using the fluorescent dye ethidium bromide. The gels are soaked in a solution of the dye and washed to remove excess dye. Then exposure of the gel to UV light reveals the position of the bands. One of the limitations of using this dye is that single-stranded nucleic acids do not stain deeply. So other techniques are used for the detection, especially when only a small amount of sample is available for analysis. One of the most sensitive techniques is to use radio-labeled molecules. For nucleic acids, labeling can be done either at 5' or 3' end with 32 phosphorus as discussed in the next section. Stains all solutions prepared in formamide can be used for staining nucleic acid bands and then visualized under UV visible white light. Now students, after having discussed in detail about the principle of gel electrophoresis, the gels which are used and also the application and the apparatus, let us now talk about the radioisotopes in biology. Sometimes labeling of small and large molecules is required. In fact, it is very useful in the laboratory so that they can be easily detected after chromatographic and electrophoretic separation or in various binding studies. One of the most common labeling techniques is to attach a radioactive isotope to a molecule so that it contains a radioisotope in place of a normally occurring isotope. Molecules labeled by radioisotopes can be detected in solution or in solid form by measuring the radioactivity emitted by them. The existence of isotopes for the first time was given by radiochemist Frederick Soddy in the year 1913. Ever since their use in experimental biology in the early 1950s, it was a matter of concern for the research groups because of the risks and hazards associated with the radioactive material. So, the question arises, why to use radioisotopes with numerous biophysical and biochemical techniques which are available for the characterization of the molecules? Before answering this question, we should know what isotopes and radioisotopes basically are. Let us now discuss about isotopes and atomic stability. Atoms of an element with some atomic number but different atomic mass numbers are called isotopes. Symbolically, a specific nucleus species is represented by a subscript number for the atomic number and a superscript number for the mass number, followed by the symbol of the element. For example, 12 carbon, 14 carbon, 16 oxygen and the 18 oxygen. They all, you can see, they have the same atomic numbers but different atomic masses. Radioisotopes. A radionuclide or a radioactive nuclide is an atom having unstable nucleus which undergoes radioactive decay and emits gamma rays or subatomic particles. Unstable isotopes are also known as radioisotopes, and they become stable by the process of radioactive decay. The ratio of neutrons to protons determines the stability of an isotope. Radioactivity is caused by the spontaneous emission of either particles or electromagnetic radiation from the nucleus of an atom. Radionuclides may occur naturally, but they can also be artificially produced. Now let us discuss what is radioactivity. As already you might be having some idea, radioactivity is a measure of a radionuclide activity, or which can be defined as a number of disintegrations emitted in a given time. The system's international units, that is SI unit, for activity is the becquerel. A becquerel is equal to 1 disintegration per second, that is 1 dps. The conventional unit of radioactivity is curie. A curie is defined as a quantity of radioactive material in which the number of nuclear disintegrations per second is same as that of 1 gram of radium. It is obviously named Curie after the great scientist Dr. Marie Curie. And this equals 37 billion disintegrations per second. For biological purposes, the microcurie, that is μCi, and millicurie, that is MCi, small m, are used. What are the different types of radioactive decay known to us? Now let us talk about that. The different types of radioactive decay which are relevant for from the biochemical point of view is a decay by positron emission. This decay or this type of decay occurs when proton is converted into a neutron with the emission of positively charged beta particles called positrons. So you can see here proton is converted into a neutron and a positron. An example of isotope decaying by positron emission is 22 sodium, and this equation is shown to you here. It is used in the biological sciences to see the effect in brain scanning with the technique positron emission tomography, which is the PET scanning, used to identify active and inactive areas of the brain. Decay by negatron emission. Some isotopes decay by emitting negatively charged beta particles called negatrons or beta negative. So neutron is getting converted into proton and a negatron. An isotope frequently used in biological work with that decays by negatron emission is 14 carbon, and this equation is shown to you here. This emission is very important for biochemists because many radionuclide decays are done by this mechanism. Examples include 14 carbon, which is used to label organic compounds, 35 sulfur used to label methionine for protein study, 33 phosphorus and 32 phosphorus as nucleic acid labels. Decay by alpha particle emission. It is a type of radioactive decay in which an atomic nucleus emits an alpha particle and thereby decays into an atom with a decrease in atomic number of 2 and atomic mass of 4. Alpha particles consist of protons and 2 neutrons, similar to a helium nucleus. For example, uranium-238 decays by alpha emission to thorium-234. We have shown this equation here, as you can see. Alpha particles are extremely toxic if ingested due to a large mass and the ionizing power. Electron capture is another method. In this decay, a proton captures an electron which is orbiting in the innermost K shell. Now you can see the equation here. The proton becomes a neutron and electromagnetic radiation, which is known as X-rays, is released. Here we have shown the example of iodine-125 getting converted into tellurium-125 plus the X-rays are given off. Decay by emission of gamma rays. In some cases, alpha and beta particle emission also gives rise to the gamma rays. The gamma radiation has low ionizing power but high penetration power. For example, iodine-131 gets converted into xenon-131 plus a negatron plus gamma rays. Biological importance of radioisotopes. After having studied what is radioactivity, radioisotopes and their modes of decay, let us understand how biologically important these radioisotopes are. After having a brief idea of radioisotopes, radioactivity, and the different type of radioactive decays, we are back with a question. Why do we use radioisotopes? The question which we have asked earlier too. Radioactive isotopes or radioisotopes have a variety of applications. First, radioactive isotopes are effective tracers because it is possible to detect radioactivity with exquisite sensitivity. A tracer is a substance that can be used to follow the pathway of that substance through some structure. This means that the progress of a chemical through a metabolic pathway or in the body of the plant or animal can be followed relatively easily. In other words, less amount of chemical is required and the methods of detection are pretty simple. Radioactive tracers are used in cell research because it is an effective method of monitoring molecular interactions. Tracers can also be used to follow the steps of a complex chemical reaction. There is no other technique which is as precise and specific as the radioactive methods. Most of the elements and compounds of interest are normally present in the organism in such small amounts that chemical studies are impossible under physiological conditions. Secondly, it is possible to know what will be the fate of individual atoms in the pathway. After incorporating radioactive atoms into reactant molecules, scientists can track where the atoms go by following their radioactivity. This is achievable by creating compounds with 14 carbon in specific locations on the molecule. One excellent example of this use is the radioactive carbon-14 to determine the steps involved in the photosynthesis of plants. Thirdly, we can identify a part or end of a molecule and follow reactions very precisely. This technique is very useful in molecular biology. One end of a DNA molecule is labeled for techniques such as DNA footprinting, a method for investigating sequence-specific DNA binding proteins. Along with the above said importance, radioactive isotopes or radioisotopes prove to be useful in the medicine, diagnosing and treating illnesses and diseases. One example of a diagnostic application is the use of radioactive iodine-131 for the test of thyroid activity. Now we have shown you this table which shows and lists some of the isotopes that have been used in the application in medicine. So earlier when we were asking the question of how the radioisotopes are useful, there was another question about their safety aspects. Now let us discuss that, students. The main drawback of using radioisotopes is the toxicity associated with them. They produce ionizing radiations, which beyond a certain point is very bad for the human under the study. When radiations are absorbed, they cause ionization and free radicals are formed that interact with the cell's macromolecules, causing mutation of DNA and hydrolysis of proteins. The toxicity of radiation depends on the amount absorbed by the body, energy associated with the absorbed radiation, and its subsequent biological effect. The higher the energy of the radiation, the more will be the potential hazard. So when planning to use an isotope or a radioisotope, one should consider the following points. First, is it necessary to use these radioisotopes? If the answer is no, then a non-radioactive method or its alternative method should be best to use. Second, which radioisotope should be used? One should use a radioisotope which has the lowest amount of energy sufficient for that particular purpose. Now here we have shown you the table I was talking about, which shows the radioisotopes and having a variety of application in medicine, and this is tabulated here for you. Now with the end of this module, students, I would like to summarize it. In this module, we have taught you that electrophoresis is a method used by biochemists for the analysis, separation and purification of molecules or biomolecules such as nucleic acids and proteins. The molecules are analyzed on the basis of size, shape and charge density. The most common gels used for proteins are SDS-PAGE and the polyacrylamide gels. Agarose and PAGE are used for the electrophoresis of nucleic acids. After electrophoresis, bands can be visualized with the help of a dye. The mobility of different bands can be used to predict the molecularity and the structural aspects of the biomolecule. Radioisotope labeling is a technique which is used for the detection of small and large molecules by making use of radioisotopes. This method is more sensitive than the spectroscopic methods and is often more easier to carry out than the time-taking and more laborious studies based on chemical or biological activities. Radioisotopes have wide applications in molecular biology as well as medicine. Nucleic acids can be easily labeled by attaching a terminal nucleotide that contains 32 phosphorus in place of a normal non-radioactive 31 phosphorus. Metabolites labeled with NMR active isotopes such as 13 carbon can also be detected by living tissues by NMR techniques. The use of this method has several disadvantages. First and foremost is the risk of working and with potentially mutagenic material, that is, irradiation can cause the DNA damage. So when handling radioisotopes, one should keep in mind to maintain a maximum distance between you and the source of the radioisotope, and keeping the shielding at all time, that is the lead shielding, which can minimize the time of exposure if it is possible to the maximum extent. So students, I hope you enjoyed this module to the maximum, as it was very informative on the electrophoresis as well as the use of radioisotopes in biological areas.